Hey yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're getting our final review of Empyrean by Fallujah. So, I'm just gonna say that I didn't have the greatest week with this album, so I'm curious to know though what you thought of it, so I'm gonna pass the floor to you first.
All right.
And I'll let you say what you gotta say.
Well, if you remember from our new releases video last week, this album blew my mind when I first heard it.
That's right.
I'm like, oh my god, this is incredible. It's the best thing ever. And we, sometimes we talk a little bit throughout the week, when we're listening to albums. And you said something, and that got me thinking a little bit. And the more I thought about that, the more I'm like, you know what? I think he might be kind of right. Like, I see where he's coming from about this. This album has fantastic performances. Amazing guitar solo to guitar work, really cool riffs, awesome sounding songs, but they all do the same thing. It lacks contour. That's the main issue I find with this album, is that you kind of start at a certain level and you go straight line to the end. It doesn't, when it does give you some breaks, it sounds really nice, but within that same song, it goes back up to the crazy stuff again, and the noodly guitars and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, this stuff is cool, but it's more special if it's done more sparingly. Mm-hmm. Make it more sparse. Don't pack it that much into every single song, or else it's gonna stale out a little bit. And I was finding myself putting the album on being like, which song was this again?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was this one. However, there were a few songs that did distinct themselves for me. Eden's Lament being one of them. That's one of the songs that kind of started to jump out at me like, oh yeah, this is actually pretty cool. There is a guitar lick that happens in the background during the chorus that I like quite a bit, and that was the kind of thing that would jump out every time I heard the song, which would also pretty much tell me what song I'm listening to, which I guess is a bit of an issue. If it's just this one little guitar lick that is telling me what song is on. But I do think it's one of the better songs as well because it's a bit shorter. So there's less time for it to drag on to just crazy guitar doodling, and wacky arpeggios and all that kind of stuff. But there is a false ending that, in my opinion, makes absolutely no sense, because the false ending feels perfect as an ending, and then they just staple on like the intro riff for like 10 or 20 seconds.
Which song?
Eden's Lament.
Oh, Eden's Lament, okay.
They staple that on at the end, and it's like, why even have that there? What's the point? It makes you think another song started when, no, this is actually just a crazy little, not even crazy, it's just like a jump scare false ending. Which is kind of annoying, because it's like the way the false ending goes, I wish it wasn't false. I wish it was true. I want the true ending to this song, because it would have been better that way.
Yeah.
But the songs that I ended up kind of just generally liking were Eden's Lament, Into the Eventide, which is a song that I really liked last week as well, and a big part of why I understand now is because it plays with the contour a little bit. Mm-hmm. It breaks things down a little, and it feels different that way, and it feels like a little bit of a break. It still has some of the crazy stuff, yes, but I do think that it, is an example of, hey, you could be doing more stuff like this in the album and it would benefit a lot.
It's actually the fastest song on the album, as far as BPM goes.
Yeah. I'm just saying it goes back and forth.
It does go back and forth. It actually fluctuates quite a bit, but as far as, I clocked the BPM on a lot of the songs, and that was by far it gets the fastest, so maybe that's one of the reasons why it stands out.
Mm-hmm. I also like the Bitter Taste of Clarity, which is the first track. The instrumental is cool, but it's hard to tell when it's on and when I'm listening to just a really long bridge or a solo section,
Yeah.
I'll be listening to the instrumental and it's good. It's actually a good track. It's just, how can I tell if this is a different song or not for how long these sections go on for?
And that's problematic.
Exactly. Soulbreaker also has a pretty nice chorus. That's another thing that kind of stood out to me a little bit. But I'm still thinking this album has a lot of cool stuff, but I realized wow, there's just a lot of the same things going on, which felt weird considering how much I loved it in my first impression of it. But hey, that's why we do things the way we do them,
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I had a pretty tough time with this album. I honestly didn't really like it that much at all, and I just want to, preface this with Because a lot of times when we don't like an album, people say, well, you just don't know what you're listening to. You don't know how to appreciate this kind of music, or you don't know blah, 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 blah. And people get really defensive, which I understand, because we're talking shit about something that you might like. I get it. But this reminded me of 4 other bands that I do really like, and it sounds a lot like these other bands. Rivers of Nile, The Ocean Collective, Born of Osiris, and Allegiant. I heard so much parallels with those 4 bands. Those 4 bands are all on our 2 toe tag list. So you can't say that I don't know what I'm talking about. This is just very, very mid as far as the whole album goes, except the drums. The drums are exceptional on this, but it's not enough to save the album. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff, some cool syncopated rhythms. There's a polyrhythm or 2. There's lots of busy stuff going on. The drums are the most entertaining part. I felt like the vocals were very mid. There's a bit of diversity there. There's even a female vocal that comes in, I think, on a track or 2. There's a little bit of range, but really it just seems like an average vocal. You said the guitars were great. I thought they were, again, mid. I'm going to use that word again because it's the best word I have at this point. I just felt like everything here was just so standard. And the fact that all these songs were interchangeable with each other, and when I put them on, if it was on shuffle or if I started in the middle of a song, I could never tell what song it was on because they all sound so similar. Tonally, sonically, just everything about them was just so bland. I really hate saying bad stuff about albums. You know that.
Yeah.
And if you guys watch the channel, you know that. But I have to be honest. I feel like this album lacks a lot of creativity. And maybe I'm just not a fan of Fallujah because I went back to listen to the 2016 album. Don't remember the name of it, but just for a point of reference, right? Has this band always sounded like this? Did they change their sound? That sort of thing. So I listened to that album, and nope, same shit. It's all the same shit. I understand why people might like it. I understand why this might be somebody's favorite band. But I think that maybe if you listen to as much metal as we do, and that sounds like a ignorant thing to say, really, because I know a lot of people listen to a lot of metal, but I just feel like there's so much better stuff out there, like those other 4 bands I listed, who make music that's way better quality than this and way more entertaining and way more creative, that this just feels like a boring mess. It really does. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like what you're saying is that this album is kind of in a big pool, but they're not really like that high up in the ranks. Like the 4 bands you mentioned, you're saying are all do what this band does, but way better.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. And it's like they're all playing very similar style of music, maybe with a little bit of genre bending in there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like Rivers of Nile, like I said, all the 4 of those bands are on the 2 toe tag list. So they have at least one album each that we both loved. So what do I say about this? It really didn't do a lot for me. There's a couple things I did like. Okay,
yeah, what did you like?
I don't know exactly specifics, but the last track, Artifacts, I like how it starts. It's got a really cool intro, but I hate the fact that it's the last track because Celestial Resonance, the instrumental, should be the last track. It sounds like a last track. It ends like a last track. And then all of a sudden Artifacts kicks in. I'm like, oh, this is cool, but the album should be over at this point.
So would you just want to just like swap their positions?
Swap those positions would be good. Eden's Lament, you like that song. I also like that song. That also has a really cool intro. There are some cool things that happen. It's cool bass lines. The guitar solo in Into the Eventide is really good. There are things that I liked. It's not like I hated the whole thing or I thought it was garbage. It just, I'm going to use the word again. It felt very mid. It just felt like a mid-tier album. It just, here it is. It's okay. It's whatever. Whatever. I don't know. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that being said, what do you rate this album?
I'm not going to give it a good rating. And people are going to hate me. We're going to get hate, probably downvotes, whatever. But I got to be honest with myself, and I don't know how to justify anything more than a 3. And it makes it sound like the album's really bad, but it just lacks creativity. And I'm also trying to compare it to other scores I've given other albums and trying to, rank them accordingly. And other albums that I've given like 4s and 5s, I like better than this. So it's going to get a 3 from me. Sorry.
Well, as for myself, I mean, I kind of agree with you when you say mid, but for me, mid does not translate to a 3. Mid for me translates to a 5. But you know what? This album, if you just added even some interludes, it would feel so much better just because you'd have contour. You'd have some kind of break from the action.
That's right.
So the fact that all you need to do is just add that to make the album way better gives it a 0.5, so I give it a 5.5. Still pretty mid, but that's just because it's a bit of a repetitive album. That's just what the experience was.
5.5. Honestly, I thought you were going to drop this score because you were like, all they had to do was do this one little thing, so I'm taking an extra point away.
No, it's like, it means that the album is close to being a lot better. They just were missing one small ingredient.
Fair enough. Well, I hate myself for giving that score, but like I said, I gotta be honest with you guys. Sound off down below. Let us know what you guys think. I'm probably gonna get roasted. I always do, but it is what it is. So subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
I'll see you guys in the next one.